While the world fixates on the aftermath of the Israel-Iran conflict, the Ukraine war's grinding attrition, and the headlines about US-China rivalry, there's one critical factor 99% of people are completely missing: the rapid, underreported escalation of Sudan's civil war and its ripple effects across Africa and the global order. This is not just another humanitarian tragedy. It's the epicenter of a silent, transcontinental power game where the true winners are neither the generals nor the rebels, but a constellation of foreign actors, resource cartels and shadow economies quietly redrawing the map of global influence. The perspective 99% of people are missing. Sudan's collapse is not isolated chaos. It is the latest, most explosive node in a decades-old pattern: the systematic fragmentation of resource-rich African states by external powers, state and corporate, seeking to control gold, critical minerals and trade routes at the lowest possible cost and risk. The Sudan war is the perfect storm where weapons, food and migration crises are not just byproducts but deliberate levers in a new kind of global competition. When we flip the lens instead of asking, why is Sudan at war, or who will win between the SAF and RSF, the real question is, who benefits from Sudan's endless instability, and why is this conflagration intensifying precisely now, in mid-2025, as multiple global crises converge? Connecting the dots: Sudan as the chessboard. Not the Peace Sudan's war, which erupted in April 2023 between the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, and the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, has become the world's largest displacement and hunger crisis, with over 13 million uprooted and 25 million facing acute starvation. Hospitals are destroyed, famine is weaponized, and the country's gold and oil reserves are up for grabs. Yet, while international headlines focus on the humanitarian catastrophe, the real action is happening in the shadows, where foreign governments and corporations are fueling the conflict, arming proxies and extracting resources at fire sale prices. The reality behind the information smokescreen. Mainstream coverage treats Sudan as a humanitarian emergency or a failed state, but this narrative is itself a smokescreen. The war is being sustained and, in some cases, actively prolonged by a network of external actors who profit from chaos: Gulf monarchies, notably the UAE and Saudi Arabia, Russian mercenary and mining interests, Chinese drone suppliers, and a web of arms dealers and commodity traders. Each has a stake in keeping Sudan divided and weak. The silent winners, who's warming themselves by Sudan's fire. Gold and resource cartels. Sudan is Africa's third-largest gold producer, with state institutions collapsing. Gold flows out through illicit networks to Dubai, Istanbul and Moscow, bypassing any taxation or oversight. Russian entities, including Wagner-linked companies, have entrenched themselves in Sudanese gold mining, using the proceeds to fund operations elsewhere and evade Western sanctions. Gulf states. The UAE and Saudi Arabia are backing opposing sides, the RSF and SAF, respectively, not to win the war, but to ensure neither side achieves decisive control. This guarantees continued access to Sudan's gold and land, and prevents the emergence of a strong, independent Sudanese state that could challenge Gulf influence in the Red Sea corridor, a vital artery for global shipping and energy. Chinese drones, surveillance systems, and dual-use technologies are flooding the conflict zone. China's interest is not ideological but strategic, keeping the Red Sea corridor open for belt and road maritime traffic, while securing long-term access to minerals and agricultural land. Western commodity traders. With Sudan's formal economy shattered, Western and global commodity traders buy up gold, gum arabic and other exports at distressed prices, laundered through third countries. The chaos creates arbitrage opportunities that would never exist in a stable, regulated state. Migration brokers, as millions flee famine and violence. Human trafficking networks, often with links to security services in neighboring countries, profit from the flow of desperate refugees toward Europe and the Gulf. The resulting migration crises then justify further militarization and border control contracts. Completing the cycle, why now the timing? Nobody is questioning the intensification of Sudan's war in 2025 is not accidental. It coincides with several global shifts. Global resource scramble. As the energy transition accelerates, demand for African gold rare earths and agricultural land is skyrocketing. Sudan's instability makes it a low-cost supplier for those willing to operate outside the law. Red Sea geopolitics. With the Houthis disrupting shipping in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal's strategic importance at an all-time high, control over Sudanese ports and coastline is now a top priority for regional and global powers. Whoever controls Sudan's east can project power across the Red Sea into the Arabian Peninsula and beyond. Proxy war fatigue elsewhere. As the world's attention is absorbed by Ukraine, Gaza and Taiwan, Sudan becomes the quiet theater where rules can be broken and deals struck with minimal scrutiny. African unity under assault. The war in Sudan is part of a broader pattern of destabilization across Africa's arc of instability, from Libya to the DRC to the Sahel. Each crisis weakens the prospects for continental integration, African agency and collective bargaining on the world stage. Historical pattern recognition, old scripts. New actors. Sudan's fragmentation mirrors the divide and rule tactics of the colonial era, but with 21st century tools where British and French empires once played ethnic groups against each other to control territory. Today's powers use drones, mercenaries, and debt traps. The actors have changed, but the script remains. Keep Africa divided, extract its wealth, and externalize the costs. Few realize that every Sudanese crisis has coincided with a global resource crunch or strategic realignment. From the Cold War to the War on Terror to today's multipolar scramble, the current war is both a continuation and an escalation. As more players enter the game and the stakes rise. Mass psychology perspective. What's amplified? What's suppressed? Why does the media spotlight the suffering in Sudan but rarely investigate the arms flows? Gold smuggling or foreign bank accounts? The answer: focusing on humanitarian need depoliticizes the crisis, making it a matter for charity rather than accountability. Meanwhile, the real levers of power, resource contracts, arms shipments, offshore finance, are kept out of view. The Africa as victim narrative serves powerful interests. It justifies external intervention, distracts from the role of foreign profiteers, and keeps African voices marginal in the debate over solutions. The complete picture only outsiders can see when we step back. Sudan is not just a war zone. It is the testing ground for a new model of transnational predation, where state collapse is not a failure but a business model. The winners are those who can operate in the gray zones between law and anarchy, leveraging instability to secure resources, strategic footholds, and geopolitical leverage. The war's ripple effects are already visible. Africa's gold flows. Sudanese gold is financing not just local warlords but global networks, from Russian operations in Ukraine to Gulf sovereign wealth funds. Red Sea militarization. The scramble for Sudanese ports is driving an arms race along the Red Sea, with new bases, drone deployments, and naval patrols by powers as diverse as Turkey, the UAE, and even Israel. Migration as leverage. The outflow of refugees is being weaponized in negotiations with the EU and Gulf states, who pay neighboring countries to contain the crisis, creating new markets for security contractors and border technology firms. African agency undermined. Every new round of violence in Sudan weakens the African Union's ability to mediate or set the agenda, deepening external dependence if this analysis proves correct. The future shock scenario if the current trajectory continues. By 2030, Sudan will not be a unified state, but a patchwork of foreign-controlled enclaves, each dominated by a different external patron or resource cartel. The Red Sea will become the world's most militarized waterway, with rival powers jockeying for control of ports, pipelines, and trade routes. Africa's gold and critical minerals will flow ever more directly to foreign markets, bypassing any chance of local value addition or development. The migration crisis will intensify, fueling new waves of xenophobia and securitization in Europe and the Gulf. And the model perfected in Sudan, state collapse as opportunity, will be exported to other fragile states, from the Sahel to the Horn of Africa. What no one dares to acknowledge. The real danger is not that Sudan will fail, but that its failure will become the template for a new kind of global order. One where instability is not a problem to be solved, but a resource to be managed and exploited by those with the means to do so. Who is the one party that absolutely doesn't want this war to end? The answer: those who profit from the shadow economy of conflict, arms dealers, gold traders, mercenary firms, and their state sponsors. For them, every peace initiative is a threat to business as usual. What is the connection with other events that few people realize? Sudan's war is not just about Africa. It is intimately linked to the Red Sea shipping crisis, the gold flows financing Russia's war in Ukraine, the Gulf states' quest for regional dominance, and the global competition for critical minerals. It is the hidden engine driving instability and profit across continents. If this were a 10-move chess game, what would be the next strategic move? Watch for new peace initiatives that do little to address the underlying drivers of conflict, but instead entrench foreign interests and carve up Sudan's resources even further. Expect a surge in private military contractors, new trade deals for gold and minerals, and a steady expansion of foreign military bases along the Red Sea. The reality behind the information smokescreen. Sudan's agony is not an accident. It is the logical outcome of a system where war is more profitable than peace, and where the real masters of the chessboard are those who can play both sides, extract the spoils, and walk away before the dust settles. Until this underlying logic is exposed and challenged, Sudan's war will not be the last of its kind. It will be the blueprint for the conflicts of the future. The perspective 99% of people are missing. Sudan is not just a tragedy. It is the world's most lucrative, least acknowledged battleground, a silent engine of wealth and power for those who know how to play the long game. And unless we recognize who the real winners are, the cycle will only deepen, drawing in new victims and new profiteers with every turn of the wheel.